Hi, you're listening to Childless and Moving Onward. This is the place where we talk about thriving in life when you're a woman who is childless, not by choice, regardless of the road that brought you to childlessness. Welcome. This is another episode of Childless and Moving Onward, where I explore topics about being childless when you don't want to be, and it doesn't matter how you got here, no matter what brought you to being childless, not by choice. I'm Gail Miller. For those of you who don't know me, just a brief introduction. I'm a life coach, physician, speaker, and I'm childless by circumstance, not by choice. Today, I'm going to delve into a topic that I think resonates deeply with so many of us, including myself. And it feels especially timely and really needed now because we just had a celebration. For some of us, it wasn't a celebration. It was Mother's Day. And for so many in this community, this is, if not the worst time of year, it's close to it. The loneliness, the isolation that comes with it, with being childless, not by choice, they get highlighted by this holiday, and that those senses of isolation and loneliness are brutal. Okay, so I know there are so many reasons why Mother's Day can be painful, why it may be hard for some. There are countless people who this is a hard time, and it's not because they're childless. Maybe they've lost their mom. Maybe they don't have a good relationship with their mom. Maybe they never knew their mom. And on and on. The list is endless of reasons why Mother's Day is hard for so many. And I never want to discount the pain that comes with any of those reasons that Mother's Day is hard, besides just being involuntarily childless. But the pain in this community, it's unique. It's not better. It's not worse. It's unique. It's misunderstood. It's minimized. It's pushed aside. The pain is compounded this time of year, and it's incredibly lonely and isolating because it seems like everyone around you is celebrating and being celebrated except for you. And it's not just the day of, it's the time leading to it, all the advertisements, all of the social media posts, all of that. And then after, it continues with the pictures of the celebrations and everything you hear at work and again on social media if you don't shut it out. And then it immediately also turns to Father's Day. And that brings pain for women who are childless, not by choice as well, whether you have a partner or not. And also if you do and they are childless, not by choice, then you're also navigating their pain. So it's like this never-ending stream of reminders that lead to this incredible feeling of isolation. It is so lonely. Okay, so I want to talk about something that happened to me several years ago on Mother's Day. I went out to breakfast to a place I'd been to so many times. It was a great restaurant. I loved it. And the host, he was the owner, both the owner and he was the host as well most of the time. He knew me because I'd been there so often. He didn't know me, my personal life, but he knew who I was. He always said, "Hi, oh, nice to see you back again." We'd always have some little bit of conversation, but he didn't know about my personal life. And so that day on Mother's Day, he recognized me and, we waited in line. He said hi. But as we waited in line, I noticed that as he sat people at their tables, because it was long line. It was a busy day. Of course, everybody's out for Mother's Day, right? But as he sat people at their tables, he handed a rose to each woman. When it was our turn, we walked to our table, I took my seat, and then he reached out with a rose in his hand to give to me and asked me, "Are you a mom?" And I answered, "Yes," to my dogs. So the flash of anger on his face was immediate. It was unmistakable. And in a very obvious, angry tone, he said, "That doesn't count. You're not a mom." And literally had his hand initially, with the rose, about to hand it to me. He yanked it back with this sharp, irate motion, turned in an angry huff, and marched away. And never came back to our table. And he had always, every time I'd been there before, would come in at some point during the meal and asked, "How are things?" And I noticed he was doing that this day as well, even though, it was very busy and they had a long line, but never came back to our table. So whether or not you agree you can be a mom to a pet, and if you don't, well, I disagree with you. But in any case, that type of behavior, though it was certainly to an extreme, it's not uncommon. I've had that reaction from so many people, and I've heard from many, many other women. Same type of angry response or reaction, or a reaction of disgust when you tell people, "No, I'm not a mom." It's immensely painful. It's uncalled for. It's demeaning, and it perpetuates the idea that women without children are less than. I mean, it was just plain mean, frankly. We live in a world where parenthood is portrayed as the pinnacle of fulfillment. Unfortunately, our reality for many of us is very different. Imagine, and those of you who are listening, many, if not all, don't have to imagine. You're yearning for a child. You've dreamt of a family. And then you face the heart-wrenching reality, parenthood isn't going to happen. And this is the painful truth for so many around the globe. And more painful, or adding to the pain, is that the silence of those around us about our pain can be deafening. The silence of the pain of childlessness, or the silence that comes with childlessness, I should say, it echoes. The moments that we want to be filled with children laughing, but instead we have quiet moments. Or maybe they're not quiet moments, right? You're in a room of other people, but when it comes to the support, the silence is deafening. And you can be in a room full of people and feel completely alone. That isolation, it looms large. It just makes the loneliness that much bigger, right? And this is a time of year when that is really evident, really exaggerated. In our society, in our culture, as a whole, there's this pervasive belief that parenthood is the default path, the correct path, the only path people should take. And anybody that deviates from that path, regardless of the reason, is seen as incomplete, is less than. and in the most negative of lights. Pressures from society, the assumptions and stereotypes about women who are childless, it just adds to the feelings of alienation and inadequacy. And again, there are certain times of years, certain events, certain triggers that emphasize this. And Mother's Day is among the worst offenders. The passage of time can feel really cruel. Okay, friends and family members, they're celebrating milestones that come with parenthood. And then those of us who are childless are left to navigate a different path. And it's a path that has a lot of uncertainty and grief. The loneliness, the isolation experienced by those who are childless not by choice can be really profound and complex. Generally, most people just assume that parenthood is part of a natural progression in life. I mean, honestly, that is one of my triggers, or I had an aha moment about why this was so painful, why this pain had come back up again after I'd gotten married. And it's because in my own mind, that is how I envisioned my life. You know, certain things happen in life, and it was after I got married and realized this wasn't going to happen, and what I thought I had accepted being childless and, moved on, not that I did. But after I got married, when that flip got switched, and that desire came up in full bloom, and I began grieving. I really began feeling that pain. And so I had that as well. That was in my brain, the natural progression in life. And when it didn't happen, it hit hard. So when you can have a child and you want to, whatever the reason, it can lead to a sense of disconnection, even from those you are closest to. And one of the most challenging parts of this experience is navigating the social situations. Like most social situations, conversations revolve around family and children. And then, so anybody who's childless and doesn't want to be, or even for those who choose to be child free, and you're surrounded by people, and the only conversations that people will engage in are about their children, it's really isolating. And when that's something that you've wanted and you can't have it, it's a feeling of alienation. It's painful. It's a painful reminder, and you feel excluded. So it's often, there's a struggle to find common ground with friends, family, even, again, those you are very close to, and those who are parents, because their lives and their conversations and their needs oftentimes revolve all around their children, and you feel left out. And it's not uncommon for friendships to end, for connections with family members to be lost. But here's the good news. Despite the loneliness and the isolation, there is a strength. Now, I know it's not a strength you had planned on or would like to have, but there is a strength. The grief and loneliness of unwanted childlessness can be sources of lessons in life. They can be profound, the grief and loneliness, and they're complex, but they can teach us a range of lessons about ourselves and about life in general. So, here are some insights that can emerge from this experience. Again, you may not want to be, but you are resilient. The grief and the loneliness of childlessness can teach you about your ability to bounce back from difficult situations, because it requires finding like an inner sense to cope with these really painful, challenging emotions that come up, especially when we're often all we have to turn to. I mean, sometimes we are the only ones ourselves that we have to turn to for support in our personal communities because people don't understand. Going through the process of grieving your childlessness can prompt you to explore your desires, your values, your identity beyond the role of motherhood or parenthood in general for any men who may be listening who are childless not by choice. I mean, think about it. I've heard throughout the childless not by choice community comments, they're repeated. Comments complaining about women with children and how they make their whole identity about motherhood, right? You have the opportunity to explore other roles and not make being childless your identity. That doesn't define you. This grief that we don't want, but we have it, it can foster empathy and understanding towards others who are also going through difficult situations, even if it's not childlessness. So it can help you to become more compassionate and supportive towards others facing their own struggles. So again, I know this isn't a place you want to be, and it's not to say that we didn't have the compassion and the empathy before, but it really can enhance that. Again, not you didn't want to have this to enhance it, but it can. Involuntary childlessness can help you to reevaluate your priorities. Again, common complaint in this community, and it's not a criticism, it's an observation, and it's a way to become curious. But a common complaint is about women who have children, but they don't have anything else in life that's bringing them meaning. And so often relationships end, disconnect, you see people less frequently. But when you are childless and don't want to be, you can use that as a prompt to reevaluate your priorities and what it is that brings meaning and fulfillment to your life. So you can look at it as a way of motivating the pursuit of new interests, of new goals that align more closely with your values and desires in the life you have. It's not the life you wanted, but it's the life you have. Now, I want to be really clear about what I just spoke about these insights. This is not about forced positivity. I am anti-toxic positivity. I do not believe in that. But there can come a time in life, as it did for me, when you're ready to change, to move your focus from only being about your loss, what you don't have. And at some point, you can become ready to open up to other possibilities, to thriving in life, and at the same time respecting and honoring your loss. So this isn't about, just think positive. It's when you are ready to open up to the possibilities, these are the ways you can look at making that change so that your loss goes from becoming this like huge cloud over your life to becoming a part of it that's not taking away from goodness. So, looking at it overall, the grief and loneliness of childlessness are incredibly challenging, but they can also be transformative. They can lead to personal growth and deeper connections with others. Sometimes it takes some conversations to get other people who matter to you, who care about you, to understand and then be supportive. So it can create deeper connections, as well as opening up to connections within the childless not by choice community. And it can give you a different appreciation for the complexities in life. The loneliness of this can be an eye-opener about the importance of this childless community at large. You can connect to others who share the same experience. There are support groups, online forums, gatherings. These communities are a reminder that you're not alone in this journey. Now, ideally, it would be awesome if these communities were local. The reality is, depending on where you live, there may not be a lot of local support. And so connecting in real life on a regular basis is challenging. And so the online spaces can be less than ideal, but certainly something to pursue and consider, because otherwise it's really lonely if you just have no connection to others and, isolate, physically, personally isolate yourself. But these groups provide a safe space so you can share stories, offer encouragement, and find some hope. Finding community with others that have similar experience can give you back a sense of belonging and validation. And, there's also support. In addition to support groups, there's always counseling and life coaching services that can help with guidance. But I never, ever want to leave out the incredible importance of these support groups, because, again, connection in life is so important. And so it gives you a way to have meaningful connections outside of traditional family structures. And part of the pain is, we view the world in terms of having, many of us, a lot of the time, view it as in terms of the traditional family structures. And so to have a meaningful connection outside of what you've always wanted is vital. It's really vital to combating that sense of isolation and loneliness. So that, again, those support groups are really worthwhile and key for your well-being. So the loneliness and isolation of being childless by circumstance and not by choice can be incredibly overwhelming at times. But it's important to remember you're not alone. There is a huge community out there, and looking for that support, making new connections, can help you to embrace that there are new possibilities, that it is possible to find meaning in a life that's different than what you had dreamed of. Okay, so here are my 3 takeaways from this episode. And the first is, The feelings of loneliness and isolation from being childless, when you don't want to be, are real. They're valid. And there are times when those feelings are heightened and feel worse than your usual. And it's normal. It sucks, but it's normal. Second is, even though it seems like everyone in the world has children except for you, it's not true. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. There is a strong, supportive community of women who are childless not by choice. Engage in those community activities. And the third is, you can use this pain and the loneliness, turn it into purpose, and find a new path that's meaningful, a different path than what you had planned on. That doesn't mean the pain is gone, but use this as an opportunity to find new interests, to make new connections, for new self-discovery. This, again, isn't about forced positivity. It's about recognizing that you can have life outside of that pain, or along with, I should say. I would never tell anybody, "Oh yeah, I'm over it and I never feel the pain. I don't grieve. I don't have heartache." That's not true. But it's become a much smaller part of my being. And that being smaller has allowed me to better appreciate what I do have and still recognize this pain is there. It's valid. I'm allowed to feel the pain and still honor my loss. And you can do that as well. All right, that's it for now. I will see you next week with a new episode. I appreciate you listening. I hope this episode was helpful to you. If you liked what you heard, schedule a free discovery call with me to see how I can help you to feel worthy and live a fulfilling life. To schedule, click on the link in the episode notes, or you can find it on my website at pathonward.com. You can also see more from me on Instagram at Childless Path Onward and Facebook and YouTube at Path Onward. Until next week, thanks again for listening.